I'm going to be sharing with you why I stopped drinking alcohol and why it actually stopped serving me in my life. Because there was a period in my life where it did actually serve me in my spiritual growth. It was a very valuable thing that did actually benefit me to some degree, which I'll get to later in the video. But I'm just going to be sharing with you why it stopped serving me and why I actually had to let go of this substance. And so before I get started on this video and I go a little bit deeper into this topic, the one thing that I want to share is that there's no should or shouldn'ts in life. I don't believe in should or shouldn'ts. I think the question is it serving you? And is it benefiting your growth? And whatever growth means for you. For me, it's spiritual growth and growing my consciousness and becoming the greatest human being that I can become and just expanding my sense of awareness and becoming who I'm really meant to be. So when you are talking about that kind of subject and these kind of things, it's like, well, there came a point in my journey where it just wasn't really serving me anymore. So I'm not saying that you should or you shouldn't do anything. I'm simply sharing with you my perspective with the intention of maybe adding value to you, making you realize why maybe it's not serving you as well, or maybe you're in a phase in your life where it is serving you. So you can make that choice. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm not here to tell you what to do. That is your decision. You have responsibility in your life to take the actions that you want. And so that's all I wanted to share before I get started in this video. So if you're new to this channel, I want you to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because I post a new video every single day. Also, if you want to work with me one-on-one, then consider applying for a free consultation by hitting the website that's in the description box of this video. So I'm going to be sharing with you why I stopped drinking alcohol. And I'm going to start off by sharing with you the backstory of how this all played out, because here's how my life used to be. I used to go out a lot. I used to drink a lot of alcohol. I used to drink alcohol pretty much on a consistent basis, at least like every weekend, not more than that. Pretty much every weekend, or maybe some weekends I wouldn't do it. And I would drink at parties, at clubs and stuff like that. And so this is actually while I was going through my spiritual awakening, right? So I was already meditating and I was already going through my awakening process, already going pretty deep, and I was meditating, raising my consciousness and doing all of that. And then so what happened was, it was a very powerful teacher to some degree, because what I noticed when I would drink alcohol is that every single shot I would take, it would actually bring me to a lower state of consciousness. It would almost like, which is not good or bad, it would just make me less aware. Like that's what the substance did. And so before I continue, I do want to share that I haven't drank in, so I've been like over 6 months at this point. Maybe like, I don't know, I haven't counted. Maybe it's been even like almost a year. I'm not really sure. But, during this process, I would drink and then it would really impact my state of consciousness. And so that was a pretty interesting experience. So I did that for a reason, because it was fun, obviously, in the moment of my high school years, going out to parties and stuff. But then also spiritually speaking, it was pretty interesting because my state of consciousness would actually be completely different when I would drink this, which is expected, right? You're drinking alcohol. But when you're doing things like meditation and you get to a higher state of consciousness, when you're doing a deep meditation, and then you have this contrast to show you, okay, what's the opposite of that? It's almost like every single shot that I would drink, it would bring me closer to unconsciousness. And so it's interesting because it actually did help me to a very powerful degree, because I also used to have social anxiety, which I have none at all right now. It's absolutely non-existent, but I used to have that. And then so it actually taught me a lot of valuable lessons, and it gave me a lot of courage to go talk to people and go expand my awareness to some degree on how to be a social person. So I think that it was a very valuable lesson, and I think that it taught me a lot of lessons in terms of things that I wouldn't have learned if I wasn't actually using that substance at that point in my life. Because I think that it did actually expand my consciousness to some degree, because it showed me a contrast between what a high state of consciousness is and what a very low state of consciousness is. Because I started to notice that when I would drink alcohol, I would almost be like not in control. And then I connected that back with the ego, and how, what is the ego? It's pretty much the unconscious part of you that goes through life and is daydreaming. And then I noticed that I was actually going through life, and then me drinking alcohol would like amplify that unconsciousness. And it was fun, and it was very it was a very valuable experience to me, but then it came a point where it actually stopped benefiting me. So the one thing that I noticed is that when I would drink, it would lower my state of consciousness and my energy, right? And so it taught me so many valuable lessons. So I'm not here to say that you shouldn't drink or you should drink. I'm just saying that for me personally, it stopped benefiting me and it stopped actually giving me the value that I needed. And so it was holding me back with what I wanted to create, right? I wanted to become a full-time YouTuber. I want to become this. I want to become that. I want to expand my consciousness. I have all these goals. And so it's like the alcohol just wasn't serving me. And so it was, to an extent, it was actually serving me. But then there came a point where it stopped serving me. It stopped benefiting me. It wasn't giving me anything. I wasn't getting anything from the substance. And so my ego was kind of holding on because that was part of my identity, right? To like use this substance, that's just who I am, right? I go out to the clubs on the weekends and I drink for fun. Like that's what I do. That's just what I do. It's just normal. And so it is normal at that phase in my life. But then I created an identity around that and I didn't want to let that go. So then there came a point where I started to look a little bit deeper into this and I was like, this isn't helping me. This isn't really benefiting me any longer. It's not giving me what I need. And it did at some point in my life. I think that once again, it taught me so many valuable lessons, but then eventually it was like, okay, when I drink, I actually completely lose my state of consciousness and I do things that I normally would not do if I wasn't in that state. And so connecting it back to the ego is super, super interesting to me because I noticed that when I would go to this party, right? I was at a party and I was at this party and so I drank and then people would tell me memories of things that I did that I absolutely would not do if I was at a higher state of consciousness. So it's almost like something took me over and I was like, it's like I was running off my survival instincts to some degree. Okay, and if you're noticing a pattern here, if you watch my channel, this connects back to the ego, right? What is the ego? The ego is survival. And so when I was drinking, my survival instincts would actually come out and then I would kind of run on autopilot. Okay, so are you seeing the connection here between spirituality? Because what is spirituality? You're letting go of the ego, you're breaking out of the autopilot. So when I would drink, it would make me run on autopilot. And I literally wasn't in control because people would tell me memories of stupid things that I would not have done if I was at a high present conscious state, right? Like I was like arguing with people, right? Like getting mad. I think I tried to steal something. I tried to like steal alcohol from somebody or something. And it's like, I would not do that if I was sober. I wouldn't do it. And then the thing is, the worst part about this is that I didn't even remember that I did this. So I have no recollection of this. I didn't black out. There's obviously it's actually weird for me to explain this because I haven't drinking in so long. I feel like I'm in a completely new reality right now. And I feel like that me talking about this is almost like a past life of mine or something. I feel like that version of me doesn't actually exist anymore with all the meditation that I've done and me dropping out of school and me shifting into a new reality, becoming a coach. I feel like that's past life. So that's just kind of weird for me to share that. But then I started to notice that, I was actually running off my autopilot instincts when I would drink. And so that kind of gave me a little bit of uncomfort because it would make me go on, it would lower my vibration, it would lower my state of being, and it just wasn't making me feel a high vibe state. Not to mention the health reasons, but I mean, that's pretty much implied when it comes to drinking alcohol. Everybody knows that. But it was lowering my state. It was lowering my state. And I realized this, I had this realization where every drink that I would have, it would bring me closer and closer to unconsciousness. Right? What is a blackout? A blackout is complete unconsciousness, meaning that you don't have conscious awareness. You don't have conscious awareness of the I. I am here, I exist. What is a blackout? You're completely gone. You're completely blacked out, which is pretty much the opposite of my mission in life, is to become the most conscious being that I can be and then spread that message to others. And here I am drinking consistently. I was like, okay, there comes a point where in my journey, it wasn't benefiting me. And so I could have went the route where I drink occasionally and I tried that route, but then there came a point where I just decided to let it go. I decided to let it go and it just wasn't benefiting anymore. It wasn't benefiting me anymore. It wasn't serving me. And so it's interesting because it was serving me to an extent, but then eventually it actually stopped serving me, right? So once again, it's not about the should or the shouldn'ts. It just came a point where I realized like, okay, this is actually bringing me closer and closer to unconsciousness. And I was like running off of my autopilot instincts. And that just did not resonate with me at all, right? It didn't resonate with me. And so once again, I do believe that me actually drinking was a necessary part of my journey to show me the difference between consciousness and unconsciousness. When I started noticing that I would do things that I don't even remember doing, and then I was just totally blacked out, like yelling at people apparently, and then being totally unconscious. It's like that's not me. Which is interesting because when I say that's not me, it's literally not me. It was my ego. And then so what I noticed is that when I would drink, my ego would go in overdrive. Right? I would have more ego, and my ego would pretty much take me over. I would completely identify with the mind, which is completely counterproductive to what it is that I want to create in my life. So, I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't do anything. I'm just saying that if you're going to drink, then be mindful of how it's affecting your energy and your vibration, because to me, it was not serving me any longer for me. It wasn't giving me what it is that I wanted. But, maybe you're at a phase in your life where it actually is still serving you, and there's certain lessons that you need to learn. And that's just my belief. My belief is that we have these experiences in life, testing certain things, and then we have to have that contrast between what is it that you want and what is it that you don't want. And then it can actually teach you certain lessons. And so yes, when I drink, it would close my mind, but also it would teach me a lot of lessons, and it actually opened up my mind to some degree as well, giving me different states of consciousness. And so I just prefer to be very conscious and not drink. And another thing that I think is worth noting is that when I would drink, why do we drink? We drink to feel a boost, right? To feel high, right? That's why we use substances. I don't use substances anymore, but maybe certain plant medicines occasionally. We'll talk about that in another video. But what happens is that when you drink, the reason you're doing that is to feel something. And so I started to notice that when I would meditate, I would actually feel a higher vibration state completely sober, more confidence, higher vibration state, and I would feel more high when I'm sober. And the alcohol would just bring me down. It would lower my state. And it's interesting because at some point it would bring me up. It would give me a liquid courage, as people call it. It would give me confidence. But then eventually it brought down my state, and it wasn't serving me any longer. So I had to actually let it go. I just had to. Because I noticed that I would literally feel more high when I'm sober. And then I think I remember at some point, I was like, okay, let's just do it occasionally. I would drink, it would lower my state. So I was like, why am I even doing this? Like, why am I even doing this? It's literally giving me nothing. You see, but it gave me something at some point, but now it gives me nothing. So I had to let it go. But then for you, it may be giving you something. So I'm not saying don't drink. I'm saying be very conscious with everything that you put in your body, and be mindful and ask yourself, is this actually serving me? I think that's the question. It doesn't matter what it is you're dealing with in life, whether it's a relationship or a substance or eating some kind of food. I think the question is this serving me? Because you get your ego out of the way when you ask a question like that. Saying that you should or shouldn't do something is a very egotistical statement. And once again, I'm not here to say that you should or shouldn't do anything, because that's not my job here. My job is to offer my perspective and give you a little bit of insight. And maybe it's serving you right now, maybe it's not. But it wasn't serving me any longer, and so I had to let it go. It just wasn't giving me what I needed anymore. But it was at some point in my life. And then so once again, the one thing that blew my mind the most is that I would become a robot when I was drinking. I would become a robot, which is exactly what the ego is. So if you've been following my channel and you're into spirituality, you understand that the ego is the autopilot conditioned part of you. And then so when I drink, that part of me would go on overdrive, and that would completely take me over. It's almost like an external entity would control my actions, which is exactly how I explain the ego. Usually when I explain the ego to people, I explain it as the part of you that's reactive, that's angry, that's anxious, that's a low vibration state that unconsciously reacts to things. It's dissatisfied with the moment, wanting to be in some other moment than the moment now. And then when I would think about alcohol, I'm like, okay, check, 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 check. All of that applies to alcohol. And then so once again, I think if you're at a very, very, very low state in your life and you need a little bit of a boost to, go talk to people and you're super anxious, well then maybe it could be a tool. I think it's a powerful tool. So my perspective may be different. Yes, it does lower your vibration. Yes, I think it does make you unconscious. That's pretty much what alcohol does. But to some degree, it can be a useful tool depending on where you're at in life. So I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do once again. I'm just saying that for me, it stopped actually benefiting me. And so that's pretty much it. That's my story. It stopped benefiting me, so I had to let it go. And I feel like I'm rambling a little bit at this point. So that's pretty much it. Once again, if you want to use alcohol, then do it. But understand where you're at in your spiritual journey, and if it is something that you want to use, because it's opportunity cost, right? There's always consequences to everything. There's consequences to doing stuff. There's consequences to not doing stuff. There's always consequences. There's ramifications to any path that we take in life. But then there came a point where it was actually more of a destructive thing than it was a beneficial thing. So if that's the point where you're at, if it's more destructive than beneficial, then I would recommend simply letting it go. Just let it go. And for the longest time, it was hard for me to let go because my identity was attached to that, right? My identity wanted to hold on to that. And my identity didn't want to let go because I identified with a version of me that would drink. But then I changed my self-image, and now I just don't see myself as somebody that drinks. It was just easy for me to let it go, just completely shift the identity when I realized that it wasn't serving me any longer, which is such a powerful benefit of meditation, is that you're able to let go of things very easily. And it wasn't like this whole huge thing. I just cut it out and I never looked back because I had the realization that it wasn't serving me. And so if you're having issues letting it go or doing certain things in your life right now, what I would share with you is just once again, ask yourself, is it serving me? Because when you prove to yourself that it's not serving you, if you really had consciousness that something's not benefiting you in your highest growth, you will not have an issue letting it go. Because we believe that these substances give us something, and maybe they do at some point in our life. But then once you learn the lesson, just let it go. You already have the lesson. You probably already learned what it is that you need to learn. Now let go of the identity and just move on. But if you still need it and it's still giving you something and you believe that at a core level, then by all means, keep doing what you got to do. But just keep in mind that it's always about, is it serving me? Not should or shouldn't. Is this benefiting me? Am I getting something out of this? So that's all I have for this video. If you have any questions, leave your comments down below. If this video helped you in some way in terms of spirituality and benefiting your life, then hit that like button. Also, check out my free guided meditation that's completely free. I'll leave it as a link in the description box of this video. I'll also leave it as a comment in this video. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.